Welcome to the Infinite Podcast. My name is Carlos Andres Ruiz, and I am with my wife, Melissa Ruiz Vasquez. How are you, Mel?
Good, how are you? No. I am
Wait, why did you
better
do that?
now.
Wait, why did you do that?
Because of the conversation we had earlier about how I feel often when we're talking to people, we'll ask them, how are they? And we'll just say, good, how are you? Even though good might not actually be the real answer.
Sometimes I feel like the person who asked me doesn't actually care.
Yeah, that too.
And so I'm like, I'm good. It could be the best day or
It's
the
a
worst
formality.
day. Formality.
That's the word.
Yeah. But do you feel like in Colombia is the same?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Benny say, like, I'm not that good.
Interesting. Cool. So today, we're going to talk about our origin story. And now that we're talking about Colombia, we are both Colombian.
Yeah.
And I was born in Colombia, and she was not born in Colombia, but
I spent my first birthday there. My mom took me when I was a wee baby.
Wee baby. Are you
Jimmy
also
Tart.
from England?
Yep,
Okay, got
actually,
it.
I'm from all over the world.
When Ted Lasso goes on in our TV, we are all from England, except for Ted.
Actually, fun, just stupid tangent. I did my DNA test once, so I like to think that I really
talk to this
am.
about me, so yeah.
I am from all over the world.
What's the weirdest place that you figured you learned that you were from on that DNA test?
You know what? The weirdest person. That's what you're asking.
Yes.
The weirdest percentage that I got, only because I didn't know it was a thing, was Ashkenazi Jewish or something like that.
You're Jewish.
Yeah, but it's like 0.7% or something.
Wow.
But I was like, first of all, that's not a place. So I had to do my research, you know. It's like 7% or
7%
something like
everything.
that, and it's like they say a bunch of different places that, of course, I don't really know anything about but Colombian does come up in. So that was, reassuring that my parents weren't lying to me. I know you think that this DNA test was probably pointless and a waste of money.
It costs money?
Of course it did.
How much?
I don't want to talk about that.
I took a spiritual class, and I am from heaven, and I am part-time here on earth, and that's enough. And that was free.
I'm going to swab the inside of your mouth when you're sleeping. And I'm going to send it and be like, look, here are your
It's going to come
results.
out 100% from heaven.
You know what?
All right, no, cool. We're going to talk about our origin. But before we get into a little bit more of our origin stories, let's do our warm-up, We did this last episode. So you want to go, there's 3 parts. There's deep, deeper, or icebreaker.
I love an icebreaker.
You love an icebreaker? All right, let's try an icebreaker. Icebreaker? Icebreaker. All right. What was your first job? It's crazy. Every time we use these things, it actually goes along with what we're talking about. What was your first job?
One of my first jobs was helping my mom in her cleaning business. And then my first real job that's, not family, was I had an internship in high school at a chiropractic office, and she hired me for over the summer. So I worked at a chiropractic office, and I was I helped clean, I could ask her questions, I helped her with filing, the kind of administrative stuff that she needed help with. Because it was just her, it was just one chiropractor.
Okay. You mentioned your first, so if you had to pick one, would you pick mom or the office as your first job?
I'll say the office. I'm sure my mom paid me, but
She paid you with your life.
Exactly. With housing and cooking. My mom is an amazing cook. Oh my gosh. So that I was underpaying her. Surely.
You're underworking her.
Yeah. What was your first job?
What was my first job?
I'm dying to know. I don't even think
you
I
don't
know
even
the
know
answer.
what my first job was? Trying to think.
Soccer player.
Soccer player. I got paid for playing soccer. We actually.
Whoa.
I actually, in one of the teams, it was if we win, you get this amount. If we win and you score, you get this amount. If we tie, you get this amount. And
Who's paying you that money?
And if you lose, you get this amount. And obviously the amounts give you incentives, but for some reason, I was part of that team at one point just to play while college was not happening. and then once, so when I was playing as a college athlete, I wasn't getting paid. But once I was no longer an athlete, then I started to get paid. And it was interesting that every season up until that season that I started to get paid was not a great like winning season. And then we started to, even if it was like by one goal, by half a goal, like it's crazy how different it is when like you're playing and yes, you're competitive and you want to win, but you know that you're getting an extra an extra dollar if you win. You'd be surprised, like you don't get as tired, you don't get as injured.
As injured is a crazy statement.
But I don't think that was my first job. I probably did some sort of soccer camp. I did a soccer camp with my high school coach, and I almost got fired because I shot this ball at a little kid. and if you know me, like I love working with the trouble.
That tracks. That tracks.
With the troublemakers, but then I forget that I'm no longer like a troublemaker with them. That I'm supposed to be the staff.
Yeah.
And I shot it at him because we were just shooting balls at each other, but I probably shoot it much harder than him, and I hit him. He just dropped. He was okay.
You hit him in the head?
I don't think it was the head.
Okay, I hope not.
I hope not too, but no, it was not the head.
Wait, but still, that's the only way I can think of someone getting hit and just collapsing.
All right, so my mic broke, and I was in the middle of a story. I got a new mic. Where was I? I was telling a story that I hit a kid with the soccer ball.
You did.
While I was a staff at a summer camp, and the coach told me you have to talk to the parents yourself, because if not, we're gonna get in trouble or whatever. And I had long hair, and I was like, oh no, like, I looked like a South American, and I felt like I was gonna be seen some type of way. And I had long hair, and I had to ask one of my friends that was working that camp with me. He had a hat, so I told him, let me borrow your hat. I grabbed a bun and I put my in a hat, just so I could talk to the parents. And so maybe that was my first job.
Wait, hold on. What did the parents say?
The parent, I think the parent was like, oh, okay, no, like I know my kid's a troublemaker. Like this happens often or whatever. I was like,
this isn't the first time.
I was like, yeah, I couldn't imagine that this is the first time somebody hit him, so he stops. I'm gonna lose all my clients.
Yeah.
Like, whenever I coach, they're just gonna be like, no, you're the coach that's gonna hit. You're gonna hit my son or daughter with the ball. Anyways, that was my first job. Today, like we talked about, we want to talk about our origin story. And why do we want to talk about our origin story? Two reasons. The first one is because some people that listen, like, hey, when you're doing the podcast, some of us know the story, and we don't need to we can fill in the gaps on our own. But there's people who have never heard, and they want to know, why should I listen to them? Or how can I identify with them or connect with them? And so that's one reason. And then two, our origin stories, I think, really sets us up to explain what are some of the things that we have gone through that give us the permission to give advice and to help people with specific scenarios. And we both are educated. We got degrees. But I think that there's something that goes beyond your degrees. And when I try to help athletes in mental performance, and I'm very big on relational intelligence, emotional intelligence, and character development, I think, yes, my degrees helped me a lot, but I think my life story was something that actually really molded me in a way that I can help others. I like to tell this story a lot, that I remember when I was, I believe it was second or third grade, and I remember this so vividly. I was sitting in the living room, and I remember seeing my mom crying, and she was pregnant, and my dad was sitting next to her, and she was crying, and I was listening to the conversation, and she had gotten laid off because she was pregnant, and because she was undocumented, and so she became a liability to the company, and if something happened to her, they would be liable. And then my dad's hours decreased. And I remember seeing her and asking her, she was asking the question, how are we gonna figure this out? And at that age, like, I was seeing it, but I wasn't conscious like I am now of, yo, how do you pay the bills? Like, how do you make sure that you make ends meet? And how do you still feed yourself? But what I could feel was mom, just agony in that moment, and dad next to her trying to help. And and that was a very pivotal image to the entirety of my story, because then what could possibly come across my career within sports or education that could be more difficult than what my mom was figuring out every day. And never did I miss a meal. Well, mom and dad, never did I miss a meal. Never did I not have clothes. Every December, every Christmas, we get new clothes. That wasn't the only time we got new clothes, but that's a specific in our culture. And I don't know if it's a South American thing, but we always get new clothes for Christmas and New Year's, and I never lacked. And so there's specific principles at least in my story, that speak to what it actually takes to overcome things, and the level of relational intelligence that you need to go from being in one country and landing at another country. For me, not by choice. Like, and it's not that I didn't want to, but my parents made that choice. But I had to take on the consequences of, well, if they stayed in this country, then that means I don't have a status, and how that played out in the rest of my career and being able to go to college. And for me, it was almost like, if you are not able to figure out how to go to college and get it paid for, you're gonna, right after high school, it's just work, you know? And so all of these things, I think today I get the privilege to sit here with my wife and with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I don't owe $1. I don't have any debt, and there's so many people that, aside from just my individual story, they just would like to land there, regardless of whether they were born here or born somewhere else. And so that's part of the reason why we want to tell a bit of our origin story, because there are parts of our story that actually have unique principles that we're not going to get into all of them today, but that is why we give ourselves permissions to sit here, have a conversation, and talk about how to be able to achieve your dreams, and what happens when you don't achieve your dreams. So that's what we're going to talk about, our origin story. All you guys actually know is that we're married and that we're coaches. And we got married November 24th, 2024, so less than a year ago. We got engaged on February of 2024, so a year ago. And so that's all that they know. And I think maybe we pick it up from there. When we got engaged, I proposed on a soccer field. I think most people could have guessed that. It was a soccer field where the athletic trainer, Melissa, came and shook my hand, and she introduced herself, and I was walking into, I think it was my second preseason with East Boston High School as an assistant coach. And that was the spot that I proposed. And so we pick it up from there. Why don't you share a little bit about your origin story? You could either grab it from your childhood, or pick it up from when we met at the spot in which I proposed, and go backwards.
Huh. So many choices.
That's not good?
You know, you know, you give me too many options. I'm going to give you everything in between.
Let's go from when we met backwards.
Okay. Love to. So when we met, okay. All right. So we met in August of 2022.
Wow, you know that.
Of course. Come on.
Okay.
No, that also was like the first real job.
Okay.
Because that was my first time with a job outside of school. So I actually learned about that job from a professor that I had in undergrad and grad school. I believe she told me about it too, an advisor that I had in grad school, which was in Springfield College. I graduated the May of that year in 2022. At that job, I was a graduate assistant, because I knew that going to college alone was already going to be a hassle. going to grad school is even more so because there's less like financial aid that they offer, because now they're like, all right, you're pushing it. You don't need grad school. And I'm like, you're right, but I want to. So I knew that I wanted to find an opportunity where I could be a graduate assistant, so that way I could practice athletic training for the first time on my own, but also go to school and advance my degrees, I guess. So I was getting my master's degree in post-professional athletic training. So I was working with the club sport athletes at Springfield College. I really enjoyed that job in terms of how unique it was, and the student population I was working with and the sports I was working with, because they were so unique. It wasn't like, they also had graduate assistants that worked with the varsity teams at Springfield, but I was working with gymnastics, I was working with rugby, I was working with ice hockey, men and women. It was so much fun. I met a lot of great people, a lot of great athletes especially.
So you were doing that while you were getting your master's?
Yes. So at the same time I'm getting my master's.
You were working with these athletes?
Yes. So that was just like a really fun, I say fun talking about it here, but grad school was one of the hardest times of my life, because on top of...
It's your hardest part of education yet, and balancing it with real world work within your degree, which is something you had never done before.
Yep. So I was working, technically it was part-time, but like, if you're an athletic trainer listening, you know that part-time is not part-time. Like,
what is part-time if you're an athletic trainer listening?
It's non-existent, basically, because
Is it full-time?
It basically ends up being, well, because part-time is 20-ish hours, so you end up getting closer to the range of full-time than you do part-time.
Okay.
Just because it is a very demanding job. You're working weird hours compared to like the norm, but on top of that, outside of the like direct coverage that you have your off-field stuff. So like taking notes, making referrals, like doing all this other stuff. Yeah. But I'm not gonna get into the athletic training part of all that.
Yeah, but I think when we watch professional sports and we see the athletic trainer run onto the field, we're like, oh, that's it. That's what that's what I would love to do. And I think that hits to like this instant gratification, you know, that there's all this paperwork, all these hours, all these trainings, all these certifications, all these moments in which are things that you absolutely don't want to do, to actually get to a moment when you work with a high-level athlete. And I think that's a theme that we may touch upon it a little bit today, but it's an overlapping theme in the human experience, but in particular the athletic experience, where instant gratification is actually a false sense of what I want. And with Instagram and TikTok and just seeing the highlights and people posting the good moments, and never do we see these little things that we don't want to do, you know? Okay, so Springfield, you got your master's and you work with athletes at the same time. Take us back even more. What was before Springfield?
So before Springfield was undergrad at LaSalle.
Okay.
It was college when I showed up.
Where is LaSalle?
In Newton.
And where is Newton?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Where is Massachusetts?
In New England.
In New England.
In New England.
I think that's
okay. All right. Got you. No, it's actually fascinating because it's also in a place called Auburndale, but it's Newton. So regardless. So it's in Newton, Mass.
Wait, that was the fascinating part?
Yep.
Got it. Continue. I'm fascinated at the fact that was fascinating.
It was confusing for me. I was in high school. I'm like, wait, which one is it? I have to put it on a bunch of documents.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Fascinating, confusing. Okay. I do think it's confusing.
I still don't know to this day why.
All right. Distraction.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I was about to cry. LaSalle. I went there for 4 years. I was a student athlete. So I was studying athletic training, because athletic training originally was only a 4-year degree, to give a little background on athletic training. And then, so the 2 years was technically not needed for me to practice athletic training. Now you need a master's degree, whether that's 5 or 6 years, up to you, whatever. So I went to LaSalle to study athletic training, but I also went there because I could play soccer if I went there, which was big for me. In a couple episodes ago, we talked about the experience of trying to get recruited for college, which is a little tricky when it comes to, I knew I wanted to study athletic training, and there already is a limited options that you have in terms of where you go for athletic training because it's so unique. And like the classes are very small, so on. And I knew I wanted to stay in New England, and I found LaSalle because it was one of the.
I don't think people know where you're actually from. Why did you want to stay in New England?
So I'm from Rhode Island. I grew up. I was born and raised in Rhode Island, Pawtucket specifically.
Is there like a phrase for like Bostonian?
Bostonian?
That's what thing.
Oh.
Like for Rhode Island.
Rhode Islander.
Okay, I'm there. Continue.
Yeah. For Pawtucket, absolutely not.
Pawtucket.
All my friends from Pawtucket, pull up.
All right, so you wanted to stay in New England. Was it because you were from Rhode Island?
Yeah, and my family was staying in Rhode Island. And there was literally no schools in Rhode Island that offered athletic training. Not a single one.
So you chose LaSalle. And
Yes.
at LaSalle, you did athletic training, and you were an athlete.
Yep.
All right. So in grad school and in undergrad, you had to balance it's almost like having two jobs, full school and I can't imagine. Like I remember when I went to college, I was like picking a major. I was like, give me the easiest one. I'm here to play soccer.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't make that decision. Because right now I wish I could go back and dive into but I'm not gonna get these degrees for free anymore.
Yeah.
But I say that to complement the fact that being an athlete for me and being in a business major was probably significantly easier than being an athlete for you and being an athletic trainer. How was the workload?
I remember quite a few late nights.
Sleepless nights?
Yep. Of like, cause say I had classes like 3 back-to-back from like 8 a.m. Cause you know, as an athlete, like you're stacking your mornings with classes because you have training, you might have a game in the afternoon. So, and athletic training is a relatively, it's a good workload by itself.
No, say it, like it's.
Yeah, like it was challenging, but it was what I wanted to do, so it was worth it. So let's say classes throughout the morning, and then you have to get lunch. You got to eat. Training's 2 hours. If you're on an away trip, like our furthest game was in Vermont. With long trips, it's like you're either napping on the bus or you're trying to get some work in. But
I remember I always like, no, I'm gonna do that in the bus. Like, don't worry, like, like I'm gonna relax and be ready because in the bus I'm gonna kill it. I would be playing cards in the bus. I'd be listening to music in the bus. I would be sleeping in the bus.
Yep.
And then you have to factor in the fact that if you won, you're too hyped.
Yeah, and it's dark in there.
You don't want to. There was lights.
It's dark in there.
Or yeah, it's night and you're like, you know what? I remember there was one game we played against Brown University, and
also in Rhode Island.
in Rhode Island, also in Rhode Island. We're sticking to Rhode Island. Yeah. And we lost 1-0, and it was near Halloween, and somebody had gifted me like a 6-pack of Hershey's, like not like small, like the regular size Hershey's. And I was just so upset after that game, and I just ate all 6 on the way back. And like, who's gonna do homework? But you still got your assignments done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes at 2 in.the.morning.
Sometimes at 2 in.the.morning. And I think like, as an athlete, you really get pushed as a student athlete, you really get pushed into these real life moments of almost like pleasure and work and doing what you want versus doing what you need to do, and a lot of the moments in the adrenaline we end up choosing the convenient or what's more pleasurable, but we still found a way to meet the expectations, which I think it's more real than not in life. I think a lot of people talk about work-life balance.
Yes.
That doesn't exist.
Wow.
Like anybody, like that does not exist.
Yeah.
I think, I think there's moments in which it's a shit ton of work, and there's moments where it's just life. Like if you want to do work-life balance and you go on vacations, you don't work on vacation, so there's zero balance in that, you know. And I think the reality of being an athlete and a student, especially with the degree that you took, is how to be able to control imbalance, which actually brings out the most effective and the most refined version of you on the other side of whatever that journey is. And balance feels like an excuse to not do one or the other. Your parents were born in Colombia?
Yep. In Medellin.
Medellin, Colombia.
Así es.
My parents were born in Cali, Colombia. Then having to transition from, even though you were born here, you were raised in a Colombian household with Colombian values, and having to deal with the dynamic of being Colombian at home and having to be Colombian / adjusting to American at school. And then when you would go to Colombia,
Yeah.
what the hell happens then? Because I haven't been to Colombia in a very long time since I got here. So it's been more than 25 years.
Yeah.
And what is it like when you get to Colombia? Are you like the American there?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah?
for sure.
How does that make you feel?
So when I was younger, it was definitely more of like an identity, not a crisis, but like it was like, no, guys, I'm one of you guys. And I'd be like, guys, what do you mean I'm gringa? Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. But of course I was, because the majority I'm spending my time here, I'm in this culture. So when I would get to Colombia, they were like, speak English. Like, that's definitely the first thing they'll say.
It's like you're in like, I don't know, like a zoo.
Yeah.
And you're like, do something.
You're the zoo animal for a second. Cause like, and I think not only does this happen in Colombia, I'm sure, but like in a lot of places, it's like, so what's it like over there? Like they want to know a lot about the U.S. because I think the U.S. is a dominant culture.
Yeah, I mean in
globally.
Colombia, yes, globally, and in Colombia, everybody has the dream and the illusion like I have to make it to, if I can get a piece of the United States. And so I guess when we go, or when you go to Colombia, it's like a piece of the U.S.
Yeah.
coming to.
They're like, what's the snow
tangible.
like? Like they
What's the
want to
snow
know.
like?
This, they're obsessed with snow. They want to see
until
it
they have
so
to
bad.
come and shovel that thing.
Like the first few times, I'm sure it'll be cute.
But
after
how do
that,
you, so how do you feel in that tension, identity tension? Does it upset you? Does it?
So I think when I was younger, it was a little upsetting because it was like I resonated a lot with the culture just because you resonate with your parents. Like your parents are the ones that raised you, and it's like if I'm not American back home, then how can I not be Colombian here when they think I'm Colombian and you guys think I'm American, but in those places they think you're not from here. But now I think as I'm older, I understand the privilege that I had in being raised here, but also experiencing the culture, the Colombian culture that I got to experience at home. Because my parents were also, we both give our parents so much props for like what they did to get here. Like it overwhelms me, the idea of like, I think my mom was probably getting here at my age.
That's crazy. My
I
dad too.
cannot imagine if you and I
relocated,
decided to just go to a different country that we didn't speak the language and just our degrees mean nothing wherever we go. And then just showing up and picking up any job that will get us where like comfortable or to survive really, because at first it's not going to be comfortable at all.
I feel that that's such an interesting tension that we experience it, or at least you experience it more than I, because I haven't gone to Colombia in a while, but the tension of being identified as other when you're there. And then I imagine that when you're in school, then you're also the other. You're the Colombian when you come back here. And it's almost like you're always other. And I think we underestimate the fact that being comfortable with being seen as other is such an important tool, because we constantly transition. We transition from elementary school to middle school, If you're lucky, your middle school and your elementary school are the same. If you're not, I guess some people want to leave to a different place. But then you got to transition to high school, and then you're in there for 4 years, and then you start making friends and relationships, and then you got to transition to college, which is a little bit scarier in the sense that at least high school was probably still near home or your house, and you still had close friends. But then you maybe transition to a different part of the country, and every time that you go to a new place, you almost get to decide who you want to be in that place. But then you have to fight the tension that here's who I want to be, but then you are imposed what they feel you are or what they want you to be. And when I walk into college, I was very lucky to have soccer because that helped me almost break the ice and be able to walk in with an identity that people would also see me as that identity. But what happens when you're not an athlete and you've been an athlete your entire youth career, and then you have to go to college and just be a student? And now it's almost, not only do you not know how people perceive you, but you don't even know how you perceive yourself. And I remember the last time I renewed my work permit. It was the first time that I actually realized that this paper that I get every 2 years identifies me as an alien. And I was like, that's so fascinating. And for more years than not, I have been identified as an alien, and I have been able to figure out ways, either through sports or through my charisma or my ability to speak or my ability to interact with humans, that still as an alien, I can achieve the things that perhaps the alien is not supposed to. And being able to still get to where I am today, still considered an alien, speaks of being able to fight with the tension of identity. For me in particular, the thing that really helps me, actually now we're going through the immigration process, and I'm
Pray for us.
Why do you say that?
It's a process.
It is a process, and don't not pray for us as in like we're scared. Is more is more because it's almost like I became comfortable with the idea of being an alien. And in fact, it bothers me that once this gets done, I'm no longer going to be an alien, but I'm going to be a resident. And it bothers me so much that I have to go through all of this paperwork to be a resident of a part of Earth.
Yeah.
And so every time that I sit in front of these papers, it's just like, I don't want to do this. Like, I shouldn't need to sign something that makes me be able to live on Earth. Yeah. And if I went back to Colombia, like, it's still Earth. And so I think something that has really helped me in this tension of identity and being able to coexist with people that are similar to me or different from me is for me this spirituality and the spiritual part of me that reminds me that anytime that somebody tells me that I don't belong, it's actually a declaration that I belong somewhere else. And so every single moment that I am described as someone who's different or other, it actually reminds me that I was designed from my heavenly creator, and that no matter what documents I get here, no matter what citizenships I get here, my identity lies on being a heavenly creature that gets to live on Earth. And that no matter whether I'm in Colombia or in the US or anywhere on Earth, I see my role as how can I download these heavenly principles and bring them onto my everyday. And heavenly sounds so meta. Heavenly for me, just when you think of what is the most good, and how can I download the most loving, the most patient, the most self-control, the most kind version of me. And I'm convinced that no matter where you are in life, if you find a way to hold on to these principles and walk into any space, regardless of the language, you're going to be embraced, because everybody wants to embrace love. Everybody wants to embrace kindness. Everybody wants to embrace patience. Everybody that sees somebody with self-control, they're like, man, I want to learn. And so today we talked a lot about origins, but I think for me today, what I would take away is the fact that there's these intrinsic principles inside of us that I think are part of us. I choose to believe because God put them inside of us. And if we really dig deep and we hold on to these, it doesn't actually matter where we are located on earth. These principles will allow us to make the most good and be received and embraced in a way that we actually belong. And it actually removes the fear of being rejected. So after we've gone through some of our origin stories and actually identified some things that we didn't know about each other and some principles within our stories, and as we close today, what would be a takeaway for you?
I would say that just where we come from and our experiences, this isn't, anything crazy. Just really shape your future and like your perspective on life. Because understanding not only my experiences, but understanding the experiences of others, I think it's so important to have perspective, because like just even reflecting on us being our parents' age when they came to this country, it helps you empathize with a lot of their experiences and imagining like your life and like what you've come to.
So we're through these stories remembering that we're just constantly being shaped, and that others are constantly being shaped. Every time I think of my parents, I become so emotional and grateful and astonished as to the decisions that they made, not for them,
Yeah.
but for us, you know. And we're still lucky to have them. So part of our story also is that we're still lucky to be a son and a daughter of living parents. And I have a sister, you have a brother, and we won't get into any more details right now. But that's it. We'll finish there. New set. All right. Let us know. We can actually change the colors of this thing. We can change the setup. Let us know if you're like, yo, that thing look ugly. You gotta change this. Or we like the tree. We'll keep the tree. Yeah. Leave a comment. Subscribe. You could listen to us on Spotify and Apple. You can watch us on YouTube. Anywhere else?
No, follow us on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. Mel, episode 4?
Yeah.
Episode 4. Thank you so much for spending time and telling us about your origin story. I love doing this with you. I love listening to your stories and the stories that I still hadn't heard about you. I love you, and we'll see you guys next episode.